Good morning, everyone. It's a real joy and honor to be here with all of you today. The summer of 2006 was the summer I got to spend some quality time with a very special guy. Walter Cronkite called me and asked me to dinner. With all due respect to my late husband, Jay, I think I'd never been quite as excited to go out on a date as I was that August night. We met in the pool room of the Four Seasons, and while it was a lovely setting, it made chatting a bit challenging. The fountain was in full Old Faithful. The crowded dining room was noisy, and the acoustics were absolutely dreadful. I was worried. This was not the perfect place for a man of advanced years who had trouble hearing. His lovely friend, Joanna Simon, was sitting next to Walter and helped reiterate at close range my torrent of questions. My trepidation was quickly replaced with relief as we talked about United Press, where my father had also covered politics, the Nuremberg trials, the war in Iraq, the state of journalism, everything from American politics to American Idol. Nothing got lost in translation. It was so clear that even as he approached 90, Walter Cronkite was a brilliant man with an insatiable curiosity about the world and the people in it. I was overwhelmed sitting across from the anchor, the man for whom the term was coined, whose very presence had defined the job. He could not have been more enthusiastic or supportive. He may have been an older man, but he was never a part of the old boys club. History sometimes has a way of placing a filter on memory, a sort of soft and gauzy lens on the way it really was. Mortality and our penchant for idealizing those who have died can often transform even mediocre men into giants. But this passing has required no selective recollections or hyperbole. It's been a pure joy to celebrate and remember Walter Cronkite for the way he really was. And it's been inspiring over this past month to witness a well-deserved and much-needed rebroadcast of Walter's unparalleled life and career. In a sea of superlatives, what has surfaced repeatedly like a buoy marking his beloved coastline is his extraordinary sense of fairness, his ever-present humanity, and his complete and utter lack of pretense. He learned about these things at an early age. His father, a dentist who could at times be difficult and distant, had zero tolerance for prejudice of any kind. Clearly a man ahead of his time in the Jim Crow Texas of the 1920s. In his autobiography, A Reporter's Life, Walter describes his father's disgust when he watched a wealthy man and so-called pillar of society punch a young black delivery boy in the face when he had the audacity to set foot on his veranda. Walter Sr. quickly said, "Helen, Walter, we're going now." His father's indignation and insistence that young Walter wasn't better than anyone gave him an appreciation for everyone, and he carried it with him for the rest of his life. Through Walter Cronkite's eyes, the country was an expanded canvas of a Thomas Hart Benton mural, his favorite artist. It was the hardworking, humble Americans he most revered and respected. When Chip Cronkite was a young boy, he went to a Yankee game with his dad on the subway and vividly remembers how impressed his father was to meet a Medal of Honor recipient. Heroism, hard work, and humility trumped celebrity every time. He never missed an opportunity to thank a high school teacher or shake the hand of a construction worker. He was an uncommon man who never lost touch with a common man. Sorry, my mouth is getting very dry up here. We've heard much about Walter's enormous contributions to journalism, but the measure of this man cannot be completely gleaned from deadlines met, stories broken, or presidents prodded. The job description journalist, his daughter Kathy told me, was no doubt a big part of who he was, but by no means all he was. He was a husband and a father who could disengage from his job and focus entirely on his family. And though this was before we could all be perpetually tethered to our work by technology, something tells me that even today, he might accidentally leave his BlackBerry in a drawer. He was a man who taught his daughter Nancy to love the ocean by swimming in rough surf while she clung to his back like a baby monkey. He was a man who helped Chip learn to tie a sailing knot by, picture this, tying up Dad, Gulliver's Travel style, even as he steered the boat from the cockpit. Walter was a man who played board games like Clue and Risk with laser-like focus, but a notoriously bad speller, he avoided Scrabble like the P-L-A-G-U-E. He could have beaten me, I'm sure. And sometimes the Cronkite kids enjoyed it most when their dad was recognized for who he wasn't. Everyone at Disneyland thought he was Walt Disney, which for a kid, of course, had much more cachet. On Martha's Vineyard, it was a Cronkite family ritual to fire a cannon on special occasions. Afterward, the children would run through the dewy grass as the yard was shrouded in smoke. On New Year's Eve, to celebrate the bicentennial, Walter decided to fire the cannon for every state in the Union, underestimating how tedious it was to prime it, load it, ram it, and fire it. So after a few times, he decided he would fire it for the 13 colonies instead. Walter's loving and playful relationship with his wife of nearly 65 years was legendary, as we've already heard today. His children recall him talking with Betsy, and suddenly, when a song or piece of music came up in the conversation, taking her into his arms and doing an impromptu waltz around the living room or the boat. As Nancy told me, there are so many wonderful memories. We had so much fun. Walter Cronkite has had an off-camera life that was rich, full, and vibrant. In many ways, his real-life experiences shaped the man we all knew. No wonder we all thought he was one of us. He was. Henry Luce once said, "I became a journalist to come as close as possible to the heart of the world." Walter found that heart and captured art, and he'll live there forever.